Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive, where we're going deep on aging.
Ooh, fun.
But not like your birthday kind of aging. We're
No.
really getting into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah,
the cellular level, all this research that you've given me
absolutely.
about how long we live and even more importantly, how well we live.
That's right. It's not just about lifespan anymore.
Yeah.
It's about health span. Those years where you're actually feeling good.
Right, because what's the point of living longer if you're miserable?
Right. Exactly.
Well, let's dig into this research. The first thing that really struck me is that aging, it's not just one thing. It's like this crazy complicated web of factors.
Oh, it is. It is a very complex process. We're talking genetics,
Yeah.
environment, lifestyle choices, your metabolic processes.
Yeah.
All of these things are influencing how our cells and tissues and organs function as we get older.
So it's not just like, oh, you hit 50 and everything falls apart. It's happening.
It's happening all along.
Yeah.
It's a gradual process that starts really from the moment we're born.
Okay, so at the cellular level, one of the things that changes is our DNA,
Yes.
right? And specifically, the damage that it accumulates over time.
This is really important because our cells are constantly dividing and replicating their DNA.
Yep.
Every time this happens, there's a chance for errors to occur.
Mhm.
And as we age, our ability to repair those errors declines. And that leads to what we call genomic instability.
So like if you make copies of copies of copies, eventually the quality gets kind
Exactly.
of crappy.
It's a great analogy. And that genomic instability can have a ripple effect throughout the cell,
Oh, wow.
disrupting normal function and increasing the risk of things like cancer.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, another term that kept popping up in this research was telomeres.
Yes?
What are those, and how do they play into this whole aging thing?
Think of telomeres as the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes,
Okay.
kind of like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces.
Oh, okay.
They help prevent the chromosomes from fraying and losing genetic information. But here's the catch. Every time a cell divides, those telomeres get a little bit shorter.
So it's like the shoelace tips wearing down from you.
Exactly. Exactly. And eventually, when those telomeres become critically short, the cell can no longer divide properly.
Hmm.
It either enters a state called senescence, where it just stops dividing but it doesn't die,
Okay.
or it undergoes apoptosis, which is programmed cell death.
So basically, as our telomeres shorten, our body's just not as good at like repairing and regenerating tissues.
Right.
We're more susceptible to injury,
Mm-hmm.
slower to recover. It's like a key part of how we age.
It's a significant contributor to that decline we see in our tissues and organs as we get older.
Okay. And then there's this whole other thing called loss of proteostasis.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to break that down for me because that one sounds a little complicated.
It's all about maintaining the balance of proteins within our cells.
Okay.
Proteins are the workhorses of our bodies. They do so much.
Right.
But to work properly, they need to be folded into very specific, intricate shapes. And as we age, this delicate folding process becomes less efficient.
So we're not just talking about the amount of protein. It's also how well it's functioning.
Precisely. With age, we start to see an accumulation of misfolded or damaged proteins, and our cells struggle to clear them out.
It's like clutter building up in a factory
Yeah.
and it just messes up production.
It starts to interfere with the normal processes.
Okay, so what happens when you have this protein buildup? What are the consequences?
Well, misfolded proteins can actually clump together, forming what we call toxic aggregates.
Okay.
And those aggregates can disrupt cell function and even trigger cell death.
Oh, no.
This is particularly relevant in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, where we see these protein clumps accumulating in the brain.
So this loss of proteostasis can have some pretty serious implications for our brain health as we age.
Absolutely. And it highlights how these cellular mechanisms of aging are all interconnected and can have far-reaching effects throughout the body.
Okay.
It's not just one thing. It's a complex interplay of processes.
Yeah.
That contribute to the overall aging picture.
That's fascinating and a little scary at the same time.
It is. It's complex, but it's also fascinating because the more we understand about these processes, the better equipped we are to potentially intervene and slow down or even reverse some of these changes.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into the next part of our conversation.
Absolutely.
Because we're going to talk about some of the things that are being researched right now
Right.
that might be able to help us combat these changes and age a little more gracefully.
And maybe even extend our health span.
Exactly. So stay tuned for that.
We'll be right back.
All right. So we're back, and we've been talking about all these changes that happen at the cellular level as we age.
Right. DNA damage, telomere shortening, loss of proteostasis.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. And there's one more term that I kept seeing in the research that I wanted to ask you about,
Okay.
Epigenetics.
Ah, yes, epigenetics.
It sounds super complicated.
It can be, but I think I can give you the epigenetics for dummies version. Imagine you have a light switch that controls whether a gene is turned on or off.
Okay.
Epigenetics is like the dimmer switch. It fine-tunes how strongly that gene is expressed.
Oh, I see.
And as we age, these dimmer switches can get a little bit sticky. They might dim down genes that we need, or amplify ones that could be harmful.
So even if our genes themselves don't change, the way they're being used can kind of get messed up as we get older?
Exactly. And those epigenetic changes can be influenced by a lot of different factors. Your environment, your lifestyle choices, even your diet.
So it's not all about our genes.
Yeah.
We actually have some control over how our genes are expressed.
You do. And that's actually very empowering.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Mhm.
So we've talked about DNA damage, telomeres, proteins, epigenetics, all these things happening inside our cells. But what about those cells that just stop dividing altogether?
You mean the senescent cells?
Yeah.
Those ones?
Well, they don't just sit there quietly. They can actually cause problems.
Oh, no. What do?
They release inflammatory signals that can damage the surrounding tissues. So they're not only not doing their job, they're actively making things worse.
It's like having a grumpy neighbor who's always complaining and stirring up trouble.
I've definitely had a few of those.
And this chronic inflammation that they contribute to, it's often called inflammaging.
Inflammaging catchy.
It's a key driver of many age-related diseases.
Like what?
Heart disease, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, all sorts of things.
So inflammation is a big deal.
It is. It's a major player in the aging process.
Okay. So we've talked about all this stuff happening at the cellular level, but how does all of this actually affect our organs and our overall health?
Well, as cells lose functionality and accumulate damage, our organs gradually become less efficient. Your heart might not pump as strongly, your kidneys may not filter waste as effectively, your liver might struggle to detoxify the body.
So it's like wear and tear on a car. It just gets less reliable.
That's a good analogy. And this decline in organ function, it has a ripple effect throughout the body. It impacts everything from your energy levels and physical strength to your immune system and even your cognitive function.
And speaking of cognitive function, I know from the research that aging can have a big impact on the brain.
Oh, absolutely.
What's going on there at the cellular level that contributes to cognitive decline?
Well, the brain is particularly vulnerable to the effects of aging.
Yeah.
As we get older, we see changes in brain structure and function.
Like what kind of changes?
Well, there's an accumulation of cellular waste products, reduced communication between neurons, increased inflammation.
So it's not just about forgetting where you put your keys. It can actually affect our ability to think, learn, and even control our emotions.
That's right. But it's important to remember that not everyone experiences cognitive decline to the same degree.
Okay, that's good to know.
And there are things we can do to support brain health and potentially slow down those age-related changes.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the things that are being researched right now that might be able to help us combat these changes and age a little more gracefully.
That's the exciting part.
It is, because it feels like there's a lot of potential there.
There really is. Remember that concept of lifespan versus health span.
Yeah, living longer versus living well.
Exactly. And a lot of the emerging research is focusing on ways to extend that health span.
So it's not just about adding years to our lives. It's about adding life to our years.
Beautifully put.
So what are some of the interventions that are showing potential in this area?
Well, one area that's gotten a lot of attention is epigenetic reprogramming.
Okay, that was the dimmer switch thing, right?
Exactly. Remember those dimmer switches on our genes? Researchers are exploring techniques to potentially reset those epigenetic markers and restore more youthful gene expression patterns.
So we're talking about actually manipulating those dimmer switches to turn on the good genes and turn off the bad ones.
In a way, yes. It sounds like science fiction, but it's an area of active research.
Wow, so like how would they even do that?
One approach is to use specific molecules that can bind to DNA and modify its epigenetic marks. This has shown promise in preclinical studies for treating certain diseases and even reversing some age-related changes in animals.
So it's still early days, but it's promising.
It is, and it's fascinating to think about the possibilities.
Absolutely.
So are there any other interventions that are being explored?
Another fascinating area of research is something called parabiosis.
Parabiosis, okay. I'm going to need you to break that one down for me.
It involves connecting the circulatory systems of two organisms.
Whoa! like a shared blood supply.
Exactly. Typically a young one and an older one.
And the idea is that the younger blood somehow rejuvenates the older organism.
That's exactly what researchers have observed in animal studies.
Wow.
When older animals are exposed to younger blood, they show improvements in tissue function, cognitive abilities, even lifespan.
But we're not talking about vampire-style blood transfusions for humans, right? Not quite. Scientists are focusing on identifying the specific components of young blood plasma that have those rejuvenating effects.
Okay.
The goal is to isolate those factors and develop therapies that could mimic the benefits of parabiosis without the, logistical challenges of connecting to circulatory systems.
Yeah, that would be a little messy.
To say the least. But it's still incredible to think that something in young blood could have such a powerful effect on aging.
It is. It makes you wonder what else is out there that we haven't discovered yet.
Absolutely. The human body is an amazing and complex machine, and we're only just beginning to scratch the surface of its potential.
Speaking of things we're just beginning to understand, the research also mentions some more familiar approaches to healthy aging, like fasting and caloric restriction.
Right, those have been studied for decades.
Yeah. But the idea of drastically reducing my calorie intake
Yeah.
doesn't sound very appealing.
I hear you. But the research suggests that these practices can activate cellular pathways that promote longevity and protect against age-related diseases.
So it's not just about weight loss. It's like flipping a switch in our cells.
It's about putting your cells into a kind of survival mode that helps them become more resilient to stress and damage.
Interesting. So maybe I don't need to go on a starvation diet, but paying attention to my calorie intake and maybe incorporating some intermittent fasting could be beneficial.
It's certainly worth discussing with your healthcare provider.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's important to remember that healthy aging isn't just about any one intervention.
Right.
It's about a holistic approach that incorporates a variety of lifestyle factors.
So what are we talking about here? Diet, exercise, sleep, stress management.
All of those things and more. All of these factors can influence the aging process at both the cellular and systemic levels.
Give me some examples.
Well, for example, regular exercise can help protect against telomere shortening, while a diet rich in antioxidants can combat oxidative stress, and getting enough sleep is crucial for cellular repair and regeneration.
So it's all connected.
Exactly. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports healthy aging from the inside out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it also makes it clear that there's no magic bullet for stopping aging.
Right.
It's about taking a multifaceted approach and making choices that support our health span over the long term.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
I like that. A journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
But it can feel overwhelming sometimes,
I understand. But the good news is that even small changes can make a big difference.
Oh, that's good to hear.
You don't have to completely overhaul your life overnight.
Right.
Start by incorporating 1 or 2 healthy habits at a time and build from there. It's about progress, not perfection.
Progress, not perfection.
Right.
I love that. So with all this research going on, what are you most excited about when it comes to the future of aging?
What excites me the most is this shift in focus from simply extending lifespan to actually enhancing health span.
Yeah, that seems like a really important distinction.
It is. We're starting to understand that it's not just about living longer.
It-
It's about living well and maintaining our physical and cognitive function for as long as possible. And with all the advances that are happening in areas like epigenetics, regenerative medicine, personalized nutrition, I'm optimistic that we'll continue to make significant strides in improving the quality of life for people as they age.
That's really encouraging to hear. And I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners. Aging is a complex process, but it's not entirely out of our control.
Right.
By understanding the changes that happen and making informed choices, we can actively influence our health span and enjoy those extra years to the fullest.
I completely agree. And as research continues, we're likely to uncover even more ways to slow down aging, prevent age-related diseases, and enhance the human health span. It's a truly exciting time to be alive.
It really is. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the cellular mechanisms of aging to the latest interventions and the importance of a holistic approach to healthy aging. I've learned a lot, and I hope our listeners have too.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you.
If you're as intrigued by this topic as we are, we encourage you to check out the links to some of the key studies we discussed in the show notes. And we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
What was your biggest takeaway from this deep dive? What surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
We love hearing from our listeners. Your insights and questions help us continue this conversation about aging and explore this ever-evolving field together.
And a big thank you to you for joining us for this deep dive on aging. here on VSOW. We hope you'll subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep embracing the journey of life.
Thanks for listening to VSOW. Yeah, we're talking diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, social connections even.
Yes, like a whole lifestyle approach.
It really is. All these factors can influence how we age at the cellular level, at the, systemic level.
So give me an example. Like, how does that work?
Sure. So, for instance, regular exercise can actually help protect those telomeres from shortening. And then, if you have a diet rich in antioxidants, that can combat oxidative stress, which is another, factor in aging. And of course, getting enough sleep is absolutely crucial for cellular repair and regeneration.
It really is about, taking care of yourself in every aspect.
Exactly. Creating a lifestyle that supports healthy aging from the inside out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it also kind of highlights that there's no magic bullet,
Yeah?
right? It's
Wow.
not like you could just take this pill and you'll suddenly be young again.
I wish it were that easy.
Right. It's really about this multifaceted approach and making those choices that support our health span for the long haul.
It is. It's a long game.
It is a long game.
Yeah.
But, the good news is you don't have to do everything perfectly,
Absolutely.
right? Like you don't have to completely overhaul your life overnight.
Start small. Incorporate 1 or 2 healthy habits at a time and build from there. It's progress, not perfection.
I like that progress, not perfection, takes the pressure off a bit.
Right.
So with all this research going on, what are you most excited about when it comes to the future of aging? What's on the horizon that really gets you jazzed?
I think what excites me the most is this shift in focus from just extending lifespan to actually enhancing health span.
Yeah, that seems to be a big theme.
It is. We're starting to really understand that it's not just about living longer. It's about living well and maintaining our physical and cognitive function for as long as possible.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. And with all the advances happening in areas like epigenetics, regenerative medicine, personalized nutrition, I'm really optimistic that we'll continue to make significant strides in improving the quality of life for people as they age.
That's really encouraging. And I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners today.
Yes.
Aging is a complex process.
Yes.
But it's not completely out of our control.
We have more power than we think.
We do. By understanding the changes that happen as we age and making informed choices, we can actively influence our health span and enjoy those extra years to the fullest.
Absolutely. And as research continues, we're likely to uncover even more ways to slow down aging, prevent age-related diseases, and enhance the human health span. It's a really exciting time to be alive.
It is. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the cellular mechanisms of aging to the latest interventions and the importance of a holistic approach to healthy aging. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope our listeners have too.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you.
The pleasure was all mine. So if you're as intrigued by this topic as we are, be sure to check out the links to some of the key studies that we discussed in the show notes, and we always love to hear from you. So what was your biggest takeaway from this deep dive? What surprised you the most? Leave us a comment below and let us know.
Your insights and questions help us continue this conversation about aging and explore this ever-evolving field together.
And a huge thank you to all of you for joining us for this deep dive on aging here on VSOW. We hope you'll subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep embracing the journey of life.
Thanks for listening to VSOW.